Chapter 1975, The Whirlwind, from the White Book by Makavelli. New York City, Marcy Projects. Hey, Ma, look! Mama, look at Seth! The girls were laughing and pointing to their brother. He was confused but cheesing from ear to ear. He didn't like to be made fun of and wasn't sure if they were laughing with him or at him. Seth stayed in the girls' room while they ran to the kitchen to get their mother. Mallory lagged behind with dirty bare soles and nappy hair. Her dress was way too big. She was slow to do things, and she still cried a lot. It was 12:30 on a weekday in July, and she'd just gotten out of bed. The Banana Splits were playing on the TV when Shirley called again for their brother. "Hurry up, Seth! Come in here and show Mama!" The boy didn't move. He stood there with his mic, still in perfect condition, 8 months and counting. An incredible feat for any little boy, double for one living in the projects. And it wasn't by chance either. He was especially protective of his mic. He'd found a few good hiding places in the family's new apartment. No one was allowed to play with it. And when he brought it out, he kept it closer than one would an enemy. He called the mic his precious. "Okay, Seth, don't come. I'ma fix you." Shirley crossed her arms. Her jellies slapped against her tapping foot. Her gym shorts were wrapped tight around her thick thighs and a yellow tube strapped in her top. Seth hated for Shirley to be mad at him. He began walking toward the kitchen. "What's going on?" Diane yelled, annoyed and sure that something was wrong. Her voice froze Seth in his tracks. "Ain't nothing wrong, Ma," said Shirley. "Dang, Seth was Diane's eyes narrowed. "Hold up." Her cigarette dangled over a pot of frying chicken. "Who you think you talking to? I'm your mama, not one of your fast-ass friends. You keep talking crazy, and I'ma be the one doing the fixing." Shirley didn't speak. She cut her eyes, and her foot made the mistake of tapping. Even Mallory saw the slap coming. Diane drew back, and Mallory screamed. Her mother took the cigarette from her mouth, hugged her, and tried to sound motherly. "Look at my baby, your nose all runny. Come on, come with Mama." She sneered at Shirley. "You little bitch. When I come out this bathroom, you fix this girl's hair and get her dressed. Keep fucking with me, your ass won't be going to no parade." Anger and frustration went into Shirley's thoughts. "I can't stand her. I was trying to make her happy." In New York, the parade season really kicks off after the 4th of July with the biggest and best, the Puerto Rican Day Parade. The ones who couldn't make it to the end usually gathered at the edge of Central Park near 59th and 5th. That's where the vendors would set up coolers and grills, and the DJs used to set up their booths and get the party started as Cubans, Italians, Jamaicans, Trinidadians, Wasps, Blacks, Arabs, and Jews all sweat together in a melting pot of food, music, and culture. By the next spring, strawberry fields blossomed with tulips and biracial babies. Jose Chavez was the second oldest of 6 children. His parents were a couple of Puerto Rican domestics. He was pickpocketing at 7, stealing cars at 12, and now at 17, he'd moved up from runner to small-time coke dealer in the Bronx. He hung out at the lounge next to the supermarket where Everett worked, talking big shit. "I'm next in line, bro." That's where he'd first seen Shirley. This year, Jose invited Everett to hang out with him and his people. "Come to the parade, man, and yo, bring your sister too, bro." Now, whenever Shirley saw him outside the bar, she'd blush and wonder what dating a Spanish guy would be like. Seth was standing in the girls' room as Diane and Mallory walked past. "And you put that damn toy down," she said. "Clean that front room. You hear?" "Yes, Ma." He lowered his head. He felt worse for Shirley than for himself. Just like Diane had been, Shirley was more a mother than a sister. She and Seth shared a bond that would not be broken. He saw her face from the living room and walked toward the kitchen. "No, don't come in here now. It's all your fault," she said, sniffling. Seth was hurt. He stopped and folded the sheet from the couch he and Everett shared. He'd yet to understand what he'd done wrong. Shirley had begun too. Mallory didn't know what was going on, and Everett was planning his escape. He could remember the days when there was some sort of structure to the household, before the men, the kids, and the drugs. At 19, he realized the little house in Maryland was better than the projects. The projects were exactly what he'd envisioned when the older cats on the bus talked about jail, a drab, depressing box used to subdue psychotics. Man, he thought, I was born in a small town. After graduating high school, Everett had gotten a part-time job bagging groceries and had plans of making manager. But his plans meant nothing. There was another who'd pull his strings. A girl he'd met in school, a tall, thin, double chocolate mocha cutie with big tits and hair that stayed pressed named Filani. When she found out the family had moved to Marcy, she decided to school Everett on how things were done. Soon, she had enough of his money to buy a couple of ounces off her boyfriend for Everett to sell. She was helpful, showed him how to bag up and everything. She told her man, "It's for my sister's guy, baby. Some L7 guy from Flushing." He gave it to her for wholesale, and she pocketed the rest. Louisiana, New Orleans, 1969. Jack had no idea what to do about his situation. He and Diane had hung out a little, and he'd hit it again just hours before she left New Orleans. He wondered which time it had been. To him, it made a huge difference. He got the feeling his days of being down with the Kings were numbered. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't come to grips with the sacrifice he'd made that night in the chamber. He felt eyes on him wherever he went. Somebody who'd been there had told the tale. Luna claimed that she didn't remember anything. For her sake, he hoped that was true. However, it got out. Now when JL went to handle business for DeLuise, he was no longer respected. Some of the dealers had been mocking deliverance. "Hey man," one would ask laughing, "how does a pig sound when you stick it?" "Don't sound like shit with its mouth full," the other would say. J.I. would pretend not to hear. Stupid motherfuckers can't even get the lines right. Luna had jokes too, and on those nights when she didn't run out on him, she'd burst out laughing in the middle of sex. Word was she had a man named Gar in the Magnolia Projects. Things were so bad they had started to affect DeLuise's money. Customers weren't even paying JL right anymore. When Diane called with the news about her condition, he tooted all night and screwed up some business. That's all DeLuise had been waiting for. JL pleaded, "But Louis, you know I've been loyal." JL prepared a hit and went to find Luna. It was the last time he or anyone else was going to see her again. Brooklyn, 1970. When the bus arrived in New York, he figured he was home free. But the problem with that plan is always the same. Wherever you go, there you are. He settled in with Diane and tried to get used to a new city, but the game was different there. He didn't fit in. He refused to take a low-level position on somebody's team, and no one was going to give him a spot without credentials. JL took the last of his little savings and tried to go solo. Like a catfish swimming in a sea of sharks, he ain't even move right. 37 years old and still copping ounces. Pathetic. This year, Pam brought back more than souvenirs. Diane wondered for days what had been so important to make her call from New Orleans. "Hey girl," asked Pam, "is JL around?" "Yeah, we watching TV with the kids. I wish we could be there." Pam found that funny. Across the room, JL feared the worst. When Diane hung up, he started questioning her like he was the police. "Damn, what is y'all doing it or something?" Diane asked, only half joking. "She on the phone acting crazy, talking about telling me something when she gets home. And you here asking all these questions. What's going on?" The night before Pam came home, JL left the house and didn't come back for a week. That was all the answer Diane needed. After Pam told her the news, she quit her job at the factory, and they never spoke again. The night JL came home was the night the beating started. They saying all kinds of crazy things about you down there, JL. What happened to that girl Luna, huh? Look, bitch, don't be asking me about my business. You gonna believe some shit that whore Pam said? I told you that bitch had been to the chateau before. Did she tell you what she did? He snickered. Or who she did it with? Diane stood in the kitchen, amazed, and holding a paring knife behind her back. You gonna call me a bitch in front of my mama and my kids after I just had your son, Jack? She thought back to that first night. Twice now, it all made sense. A bad taste filled her mouth, and she went after him with the knife. JL saw it coming and slapped it out. Bitch, you too eager. JL grinned as she lay on the floor, spitting out blood and screaming. I can't believe I had your baby. Oh, bitch, please. That boy ain't never gonna be shit. None of these bastards will. Everett came from behind and broke a jug of cherry Kool-Aid over his head and stabbed him in his neck with the handle. A strange feeling of atavism washed over Diane as the blood and Kool-Aid mixed on the floor. She got up reaching for the hot grits on the stove. She remembered the last chick that did that and spit in his face instead. The other kids followed Everett's lead and beat the shit out of JL. After that night, he moved out, and Diane slowly drifted back into her old habits. That night had produced wounds that would never heal. NYMP, 1975. Diane and Seth were the only ones home. She lay in her room smoking cigarettes and listening to her Commodores and Spinners records. She loved them, and Seth did too. He'd find a quiet spot and practice for the concert he'd do for her one day. Her favorite song was One of a Kind, Love Affair. It had the power to change his mother's whole mood. When it was playing, she'd sing and be happy. Sometimes she'd grab him and JL and they'd all dance. Lately though, Love Don't Love Nobody had been on repeat, and Seth had noticed her face looked sad, like his when he heard Ghetto Child. He wanted to see his mother smile. Diane heard a knock on her door and groaned. What is it? Look, Ma. Seth pushed open the door and did the whole song in one take. She smiled, kissed him, and held him close. You're the best, she said. Mama, that's what Shirley wanted to show you earlier. Did I do good? Yeah, you did real good, said Diane, breaking their embrace. She never held him long enough. Turn the stereo back up, she said. She told him to get in bed with her, and they lay there listening. You like this one, Seth? Yep. He was busy flipping the buttons on the microphone. Me too. I think about you when I hear it. Diane started singing.
Oh, say, don't you know we love you, sweet Sadie?
We should call you... No, we can't do that. That don't sound right. A.D., she said. That's Mama's nickname for you, okay? Shh. Don't tell nobody where it came from. She put her finger to her lips. Secrets are important, and this one is ours. A.D. was just glad to be having a moment with his mother. A minute later, the front door opened. Go tell your sister to come here, said Diane. He jumped out of bed. A.D., she said, before he reached the door. Yes, Ma. Never forget. Mama loves you. He blushed, hid his face, and kept the moment close to heart. Shortly after, Diane and her family sat on the bed listening to Then Came You. She hugged Shirley and said, You watch after your brother at the parade Saturday. That's the power that music has to influence and affect people's lives. However, the results aren't always the same. William S. Burroughs, author of Rock Magic, says this about Led Zeppelin, music concerts, and the musician in general. Excerpt 9. Excerpt 9, Chapter 1975, The Whirlwind, page 55. The essential ingredient for any successful rock group is energy. The ability to give out energy, to receive energy from the audience, and to give it back to the audience. A rock concert is, in fact, a rite involving the evocation and transmutation of energy. Rock stars may be compared to priests, a theme that was treated in Peter Watkins' film, Privilege. In that film, a rock star was manipulated by reactionary forces to set up a state religion. This scenario seems unlikely. I think a rock group singing political slogans would leave its audience at the door. The Led Zeppelin show depends heavily on volume, repetition, and drums. It bears some resemblance to the trance music found in Morocco, which is magical in origin and purpose, that is concerned with the evocation and control of spiritual forces. In Morocco, musicians are also magicians. Ganawa music is used to drive out evil spirits. The music of Jojuka evokes the god Pan, god of panic, representing the real magical forces that sweep away the spurious. It is to be remembered that the origin of all the arts, music, painting, and writing is magical and evocative, and that magic is always used to obtain some definite result. In the Led Zeppelin concert, the result aimed at would seem to be the creation of energy in the performers and in the audience. For such magic to succeed, it must tap the sources of magical energy, and this can be dangerous. William S. Burroughs, in his article, Rock Magic, Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin, and a Search for the Elusive Stairway to Heaven, in Crawdaddy Magazine, New York, Crawdaddy Publishing Company, June 1975. Splendor. From sunrise that morning, the city was buzzing with anticipation. It started out hot and would only get hotter. Old people were told to stay inside and keep cool, and that was cool with Hector Gonzalez. Not many old folks were buying what he was selling anyway. He'd gotten a couple of ounces of coke from Jose on consignment and was more than a week late paying. Hector figured, with all the people at the parade, he could steal enough purses to pay Jose back if he didn't sniff the money up first. Jose had his chicas all lined up. His main girl was in PR visiting family, and his other one he'd see early on. Around 5 o'clock p.m., he'd meet up with Everett and Shirley at the edge of the park. She had been on his mind all week. In the Smarter house, A.D. was especially excited. Martin had sent the family some money, and they'd bought new outfits for today. A.D. didn't get many new clothes and always looked a little stale, but today, everyone commented on how cute he was. He stayed silent, like a Gregorian, never speaking, but forever watching. Not exactly handsome. His looks were a sensitive subject. He had what some call strong features, or what mean girls would call a huge head, wide nose, Dumbo ears, and well, let's say he took his lips after his father. He adored girls, but had few playmates. A little boy from down the hall, some cousins, and his sisters. Everett was hard on him, always roughing him up. He loved his brother, but he hated JL, and often the feelings would get crossed. To everyone else, though, A.D. was the baby brother that could do no wrong. Shirley had just finished washing and dressing him. His hair smelled like shampoo. Uh-oh, watch out, here come A.D. All the girls gonna be loving you. You gonna take your mic and sing to him? She asked. He promised to sing to all the girls. Good, said Shirley. You sing your heart out today. You never know. Tomorrow, the good Lord might take it all away. She handed him some new batteries. He gave her a hug. He'd been worried about those. Shirley never let him down. Mallory made you a sandwich, she said. Go eat. The parade was like nothing he'd ever seen. All the colorful floats, marching bands, and rowdy people. Everywhere people. They held banners and rode in vehicles with signs claiming different organizations. The signs and symbols were everywhere. A.D. ate his elotes and wondered about them all. He asked Everett and Shirley question after question. They tried their best to answer him, but the little boy was making them feel silly. A float went by seeking donations for a Puerto Rican charity. The square glass machine blowing the dollars around was full, displaying just how much Latinos helped their own. You see that? Said Filani. That's the only symbol you need to worry about. I know what it means. Lucky for her, because Everett was starting to forget. Everybody laughed except A.D. He stayed focused on 3 symbols painted on a brick wall on the other side of the street. a 6-point star painted in blue, a red 5-point star with a crescent moon attached, and a cross painted white. A quick, tingly feeling washed over him. The closer 5 p.m. got, the more anxious Jose and Shirley got. The big drums pounded out bass that everyone could feel, and heartbeats sped up all over the parade route. They'd both seen people they knew, hers from school and Marcy, and his from the block. Then Jose saw Hector's ass lamping in the crowd, up to no good. Jose reached in his sock for his knife and was about to approach him about his cash when Everett called his name. He looked at his watch. It was 5:15. He decided to handle Hector another day. Everett introduced everybody, and Jose and Shirley got to speak for the first time. It was young love as they walked deeper into the park smiling and throwing baby punches. Jose bought AD a gang of food and lots of those little glow necklaces. He couldn't wait to show them to Mallory when he got home. At precisely 9 o'clock p.m., Filani started complaining about all the walking and was ready to go. Everett had to be at work early and knew he was going to have to fight to get some. Jose promised to get his people home safe and soon, but when Everett left, so did they. Not for home, but for Paradise City. AD was charged. He loved it in Paradise and figured he could stay there forever as long as Jose was paying. Shirley wanted to be home before Everett got there, but as midnight neared, AD was still geeked, addicted to the lights and music from the rides. Near the back of the park by the Tunnel of Love is where they talked over their plans. Jose had given AD a beer, hoping to knock him out. Between kisses, Shirley told Jose they should pack it up. They both looked at AD, who was too busy chasing rabbits around the city to hear the woman's voice coming from the shadows. "So, what's the plan, children?" Shirley jumped and Jose reached for his blade. Said a man's voice. "Don't worry about her, Familia. She's with me. Did you two figure it out yet?" Jose relaxed as a tall woman in a short black leather outfit stepped into the light. Her spiked heels were so tall, Shirley wondered how she could walk. Her lips were blood red, and her strawberry blonde hair was in French braids with beaded ends that rattled whenever she moved her head. The lights of the Ferris wheel came on, and AD turned around. On a bench by the control booth sat a tall, sinewy man, pale with black curly shoulder-length hair that all but covered his face. He was dressed in what must have been a costume, tight black bell-bottoms with designs stitched all over. Suns, moons, and stars, circles, triangles, and squares, and in every triangle there was an eye that shimmied when the light hit it. On his lap sat a guitar. He gave it a strum before he stood and placed it on the bench, picked up a matching bolero-style jacket, put it on his bare chest, and strut toward the group like a peacock. "I know what you want," he said, handing Jose a couple of tickets. "You guys ride the Tunnel of Love. On me. Lilith and I will keep an eye on the child. He can ride the Whirlwind until you guys get back." The man smiled and held out his hand. AD stared, transfixed by the scene. Lilith felt bad vibrations coming from Shirley and tried to soothe her. "He'll be fine," she said. "I have a few children of my own." AD smiled at the lady, and she rubbed her fingers over his face. "You two make sure you're back at midnight," said the man. "We gotta split then. Comprendes?" Lilith bent over to fix her heels, and AD's got an eyeful when he saw that she wasn't wearing any underwear. The man chuckled. "You like that?" AD smiled. "You like music?" asked the man. "Yes, me too. Want to trade?" AD had never held a real guitar before. It looked shiny and expensive, but still, this was his precious. "I won't break it. I promise." AD looked at him sideways before handing him the mic and asking, "What's your name?" "People have many names for me," he said, opening the gate to the ride and walking back to the bench where AD sat playing with the guitar. "It depends. What are you, friend or foe?" The child sat wondering what a foe was as the man took his hand and led him to the ride. He placed him in the seat and strapped him in. The man held his microphone and looked AD in the eye. Diane Smarter had never thought about blessings for herself or her children, but right now her son was engaged in the ultimate battle and needed all the help he could get. The child looked over at Lilith, who was walking toward them with an ornate bottle. The man pointed to her with AD's microphone. "All this can be yours." "So you like beer?" asked Lilith. AD smiled. "Try this," she said. The boy knew better than to take things from strangers, but the allure of Paradise City had clouded his senses. He took the bottle and drank. "That," said Lilith, "is for your mind, soul, and body."
My physical's a shell, so when I say farewell, my soul will find an even higher plane to dwell.
A drop ran down his cheek. Lilith kissed him and licked it away. AD felt the wetness of her tongue and the heat of her breath as she whispered in his ear.
"Witness Samael in the eye of the whirlwind, my child."
At the control panel, the MC inserted the key as his pupil began the quest. His eyes followed the boy. His mouth moved swiftly, enunciating each syllable of the secret doctrine into the microphone. The taste of the bottle lingered in AD's mouth, and the opening chords of Stairway to Heaven played as the wonder wheel raised his consciousness to a new level. There is where he heard a voice.
"Welcome a new and worthy brother, Seth, creature of ecstatic magic light."
He looked out over the ocean and felt freedom on the horizon. He looked at the sky and saw a glittering gold city atop a hill. He felt like he had wings on, so he closed his eyes and took flight. He was afraid when the ride descended to earth, afraid of falling from the sky. With every rotation, his vision changed. The second time around, his ears popped and he was lightheaded. Not only could he hear the rhythm now, he could see it clearly. Again, he heard the voice.
"In his name we set your feet upon the left-hand path."
On the third rotation, through rings of smoke and trees, he saw a path to a new beginning guided by the lights and voices of Paradise City.
"In the name of Lucifer we ring about you."
The fourth rotation brought about a cold wind. He shivered as he felt the seasons changed.
"In the name of Belial we place his mark upon you."
His head was humming on the fifth. He felt powerful and full of energy, like he could take on the world. Then the wheel slowed, and he listened as the anthem reached its crescendo. Below, the voices called to him.
"In the name of Leviathan and the great salt sea, we dress your being."
He opened his eyes and instinctively performed the bellows breath. For a split second there was a feeling of infinite peace. Then a flash of lightning created thunder, and the tunnel opened. 5 gave way to 6, and this spawn of briny heritage was gone. A traveler of both time and space. A tear seeped from under his unveiled eyelid as he experienced the magic and mysticism of 7. Images set forth by a childhood fancy. And just into the 8th rotation was when he heard the toast. He opened his eyes, and all was revealed. Through one, darkness engulfed him under a vault of fire, and through the other, he witnessed the pale and infinite light, and at 9, the two paths unite and became one, whole. Hail! The ride slowed to a stop, and AD sat stuck from his trip through zones. Shirley returned just minutes after 12 to find her brother sitting in the darkened area, weeping to be so alone. The gatekeepers had vanished, and only the microphone was left resting on the bench. Shirley and Jose asked if he was okay. "You aight, little bro?" AD blinked and raised his head. He squinted, and his lips poked out. "Sure," he said, breathing funny. "I want to go home." It felt strange to know the ledge.
puddle of blood, I lay close to the edge. I guess I didn't know the ledge.
This concludes chapter 1975 of The White Book by Makavelli. If you would like to purchase a physical copy of this book, there is a link in the description below. If you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.